How to do an analysis chart with rhetorical purposes, appeals, modes of argument, and devices. Crayon attacks Ismene. Slide 1. Slide 2. Let's deal with Crayon and his vituperative opprobrious attack on Ismene. Crayon. You in my house, you viper, slinking undetected, sucking my lifeblood. I never knew I was breeding twin disasters, the two of you rising up against my throne. Come, tell me, will you confess your part in the crime or not? Answer me, swear to me. Slide 2. Slide 3. Again, let's partition this closely and see what you notice. First part, you are in my house, you viper, slinking undetected, sucking my lifeblood. I never knew I was breeding twin disasters, the two of you rising up against my throne. It's not forensic. We're not looking at a crime committed in the past. Epideictic? Certainly. Why? Because you are attacking two individuals, calling them a viper, and then you're looking at their characteristics by the verbs slinking, sucking, breeding, and rising up. So there is an image of a snake, and there are verbs that characterize the behavior of the snake. So imagery and diction are clearly two means. The comparison of a character to a snake is certainly a mode of argumentation. Epideictic, which is to blame or to censure the two nieces, and the comparison mode. So let's look at this piece by piece, how this works, so you can see how I analyze. So the first, well, there are two rhetorical purposes. I'll describe the first one first, of course. Epideictic rhetoric is being used. Crayon maligns the character of Ismene and Antigone. I think that's clear to see. The image of the viper and the verbs to support the actions and the characteristics of what a viper does. So for epideictic rhetoric, Crayon uses the comparison mode of argumentation. The main rhetorical device is metaphor and imagery and diction, of course. Crayon is appealing to pathos, how he's expressing his hatred of Antigone, that's revealed, but he's also revealing ethos. So I should write both pathos and ethos, predominantly ethos, but you can see by the tone that he is quite angry. However, how does he succeed in describing this attack and his hatred of the two nieces? With snake imagery, which expresses contempt for sisters as traitors. So think of the snake as a traitor. The Garden of Eden, you think of Lucifer as the snake. That's very easy to see. Or if you think of the Odysseus travel, when you think of Homer's Odyssey, there is the wrestling with a snake that kills and devours some of the ship members. So that is one place to start and to think about outside the Greek canon. And secondly, you have gerunds. A gerund is a verbal noun. They express the contempt of snake behavior. So example, slinking undetected, or slithering would be a better word. Sucking up lifeblood. Again, that's very significant when you get into Macbeth. And rising up against. So the idea of snake attack coming in unnoticed, you kill the innocent victim, and then you take over the throne. It's a very powerful image to express with words and verbs the takeover, a conspiracy, if you will. So let's look at the next partitioning. So here is the chart. So what does it look like in your analysis chart? You may be wondering. I've highlighted some of the key words. So viper and twin disasters are certainly imagery, and I have that in the chart. These are my my images, my metaphors, right? And gerunds, those are my verbs. Those are my words. So the yellow indicates imagery and a comparison, and the verbs slinking, sucking, breeding, rising. Those are gerunds. So the blue indicates the verb and the yellow indicates the object. And again, to reiterate, epideictic rhetoric is used to blame or shame or malign a character. In this case, it is an appeal principally to ethos. The other slide said pathos instead of ethos. Yes, it does describe his anger and outrage, but principally I should have recorded it as ethos. The mode is a comparison. You're comparing and describing, I should add, comparing and describing, but predominantly it is comparison with a focus on describing the attributes of a snake. And then a brief analysis. Again, you don't have to be as thorough and meticulous as this in your analysis. This mostly will be presented in your paragraph, but you can say maligns the two sisters, uses snake or viper imagery to express his anger and rage and contempt for them, and that would be sufficient. For the verbs, you might want to list which verbs are used: slinking, sucking blood, breeding, and rising. This denotes a process by which there is a conspiracy to break his law, to kill him, and take over his rule or reign. This expresses not only his anger and hatred of them, but also his own fearful paranoia and hysteria. I think that is something that we need to look at later on in the course, but not for now. So we've done a pretty good chart analysis. So just to simplify, the snake metaphor or imagery deals with the yellow components. The verbal deals with the blue, and you'll notice here I'm roughly in corresponding order describing the yellow or the snake imagery, and then the bottom describes the verbs. So let's look at the next slide. And again, here we notice there are two rhetorical purposes, but the first one has been described in detail. And now we're looking at deliberative. So if you look at the next component, come, tell me, will you confess your part in the crime or not? Answer me, swear to me. Crayon orders Ismene to confess her part in the crime. So this is to do or not to do, to confess, to swear, and to do. These are all deliberative orders and actions that he wants and compels her to do with forceful, aggressive tone. How to explain the deliberative rhetoric, second component? Well, he uses several orders to obtain a confession, and he's appealing once again to ethos. He wants Ismene to confess her guilty conscience. I didn't get to type that in. He wants her to confess that she's guilty. It's a little awkwardly worded. He uses orders: come, tell me, answer me, swear to me. That's very, very militant, aggressive, and assertive. He wants to establish a tone of fear and induce an immediate confession. His tone is harsh and commandeering or aggressive. He orders her with abrupt commands to elicit a short, brief confession and an immediate compliance. So this is a mini court or tribunal, and he's ordering her, and he's basically the judge, jury, and executioner in a militaristic fashion, in a tyrannical way. So again, what would the chart look like for this component? Well, you've got deliberative rhetoric used once again, an appeal to ethos, again, denoting her as a criminal or as a conspirator, again, attacking her character. He's proceeding, to tell her specifically what to do. First, you come, tell me, then you confess, answer my brief questions, and then you swear to me what you said is the truth and nothing but the truth, and then I will probably execute you. What are the techniques? Again, linguistically speaking, short orders, so diction is important. And I highlighted it: tell me, answer me, swear to me, and the commanding tone. This arises from the use of short, pithy orders. They are very militant in their tone, and they command a sense of fear and terror to try and extract a quick confession of guilt. So this is what it will look like in the chart. And then what does it look like when you put it all together? Well, let's have a look. Here it is in about a 308 word paragraph. It's a little over the limit. It is about a 4 minus 4 paper. I think it's good, but there are ways in which they can be improved. I'll read a little bit of it, but not all of it. I will trust that you are able to read this, and you don't need me to read it. But we'll look at some of the components that you need to include in your paper. So the first of which is a thesis statement. So we have Crayon maligns Ismene's character by means of snake imagery and diction, while trying to extract a quick confession from her by means of inducing fear and abrupt orders in a harsh tone. So one of them looks at epideictic rhetoric, and the other one looks at deliberative rhetoric. For epideictic, you're looking at the comparison model or snake imagery and diction, and then you are looking at the idea of ethos and a little bit of pathos, his anger and rage, certainly fear, terror of being attacked. And then you look at the second component, which is deliberative rhetoric once more, but this time it is to extract a confession by quick orders and a tone. So you have to have a tone and you have to have a set of words or orders to convey a severity of compliance. And you begin and you just say, here is Crayon. He calls the two sisters a viper and twin disasters, some evidence. Then you explain, what does that mean? It is to insult and to degrade them and describe them as traitors who invoke fear and terror in Crayon by their sudden betrayal. Good. Then in addition, he uses opposition and gerunds to describe their traits. So first you define who they are, and then you describe their traits by means of the verbs. So you have slinking, sucking, rising, and so forth. And then again, this expresses his own shock and horror regarding the sudden betrayal. He likens it to a snake that comes in and enters his home and then kills him and then enters and sits upon his throne. His lifeblood of a nation or his power is metaphorically sucked up from him, and they are really, what he's saying, are killing him and taking over the throne. So you can see his fear and terror, and that would seem to justify his quick expediency with trying to get them to comply to his order. So he uses the snake imagery and diction, and once he's done that, he has blamed and shamed them, and now in his opinion, he's already decided upon their fate. He knows that they've done it. Antigone has confessed. The sentry has been a reliable eyewitness. Now there's nothing left to do then to bully and intimidate by means of a set of quick orders and a tone. He says, come, tell me, answer me, swear to me. This is a staccato inducement of fear and expectation of complying to the commands without any hesitation or creating a lie or a story or anything to intervene. The tone is very militaristic, like a judge, a jury, and an executioner. You induce fear, get a quick confession, and then a quick judgment. And therefore, we can say that the speech is, pretty successful. He's expert in use of snake imagery to undermine the character, to express some of his fear and terror of being, conspired against, and then use aggressive orders, which are intended to intimidate his treasonous nieces and force them to comply with his orders. It's not bad, but just 2 minutes to wrap this up. The first part, I would say, is the most successful of the paragraph. The second component, it's less successful. It doesn't look at the confession part, which is really important. All of this, come tell me, answer me, swear to me, are important, but it lacks the idea of a confession, which is a really significant piece that needs to be discussed, and it isn't. A little hard to do in 308 words, I admit, but that's the challenge. Maybe there's a little bit of redundancy and repetition that you can trim out. And when you do that, then you can throw in that component of confession. The tone, when you say a tone, how is that tone developed? Give an example. You can say short, cropped sentences. How are they spoken? Are they using an exclamatory mark? Are they using a military gruff, strong baritone voice as mine? Or is it using sarcasm? Come, will you confess your crime to me? That needs to be explained, and it hasn't been. So again, the first part is successful. The second part, the components are there, the explanation is there. It tends to be repetitive and lacking the same robust critical analysis that the first one has. The first one has a definition and verbs that back it up. Here, it seems to be disjoint and repetitive. It lacks that same talent and ability and explanation. So hopefully this will help you prepare your paragraph and just gives you another tool in your toolkit to analyze rhetorical purposes, appeals, modes of argumentation, existing devices, and a brief analysis, and then a paragraph. So good luck with your work. And if you have questions, let me know, text me or in the chat comment box, or vocalize your questions or send me a quick email online, and I'll try and get back to you as best as I can. Thank you and good luck with your assignment.